$5,000 invested once 40 years ago, left completely alone. Today, it's worth about $6 million.
That's fake. Somebody made that up for a thumbnail.
It's a real headline. And you're right to be suspicious of it, because the number isn't actually the interesting part. The boring part is.
The boring part?
The trick isn't picking the right thing. It's never touching it. That's the entire rule.
That can't be it. There's got to be more.
There's less than you think. Give me a few minutes, and I'll show you why doing nothing is the hardest thing in investing, and why almost nobody actually manages it. By the end, you'll know exactly why, and what that means for you.
I do nothing all the time. I'm basically a professional at doing nothing.
Not with money, you're not. The second your account drops 10%, you're checking it every hour.
Okay, that's fair.
That instinct, the checking, the panic, the maybe I should get out before it gets worse, has an actual price tag. People have been measuring it for decades.
Wait, you can actually measure that?
It's called the behavior gap. The difference between what the market itself returns and what real people actually earn investing in that same market, because of what they do with their own hands.
Those aren't the same number?
Not even close. DALBAR, a research firm that's tracked this since the 1980s, looked at the 30 years ending in 2021. The S&P 500 returned 10.65% a year on average. The average investor in that same market over those same 30 years made 7.13%.
That's like 3% difference. That's nothing.
3% a year, compounded for 30 years on the same starting money, is the difference between ending up with roughly $800,000 and over $2 million.
So the market didn't screw them, they screwed themselves?
Every one of them could have just not touched it. Same fund, same 30 years. The only difference was what they did with their hands along the way.
Okay, but at some point you have to sell, right? Get out before a crash actually hits you?
That instinct is exactly what costs people the most. Selling right before the money comes back.
How do you even know it comes back?
Because the best days and the worst days show up right next to each other. JPMorgan ran the actual numbers on this. $10,000 put into the S&P 500 in January 2005, left completely alone until the end of 2024, grew to about $71,750.
Okay, 7 times your money. Solid.
Now, same $10,000, same 20 years, except you missed the single 10 best days the market had in that entire stretch.
10 days out of 20 years? How much could that actually cost you?
You don't end with 71,000. You end with 32,871. Missing 10 days out of roughly 5,000 trading days cuts your money by more than half.
Okay, that has to be a one-time fluke. 20 years, one weird stretch.
It's not. Putnam Investments ran a completely separate study, different years, 2003 to 2018. Fully invested the whole time, you'd have made 7.7% a year. Miss just the 10 best days in that different 20-year period, and your return drops to 2.65%.
2 different decades, 2 different research firms, same exact story.
That's the part that should actually scare you. It's not a fluke of one particular crash or one particular recovery. It's just how markets work every time someone's looked.
Okay, so how do you even know which 10 days to avoid missing?
You don't. Nobody does, not before they happen. And that's the actual punchline. The market's best days almost always land right next to its worst ones. The week everything looks the scariest is usually the exact week you can't afford to be sitting in cash.
So the whole plan is panic? And then don't do anything about the panic?
The plan is feel whatever you're going to feel and let the account sit there anyway. But I get why that's hard. There's a name for why it's hard.
Here we go.
Loss aversion. Kahneman and Tversky proved it back in 1979, and it's been confirmed in dozens of studies since. Losing $100 hurts your brain roughly twice as much as gaining $100 feels good.
Twice as much? That's not even close to fair.
It's not supposed to be fair. It's just how the brain is wired. Which means the pain of watching your account drop isn't a character flaw. It's not weakness. It's a design feature that used to keep you alive. Now, misfiring on a number on a screen.
Okay, that actually makes me feel better about panicking.
It should. And it should also make you distrust the panic more, not less. If losses always feel twice as loud as gains, then every instinct you have during a crash is automatically exaggerated. You're not seeing the situation clearly. You're seeing it through a magnifying glass that only points one direction.
So knowing that doesn't actually stop the feeling.
No, nothing stops the feeling. What it changes is whether you trust the feeling enough to act on it.
All right, so how does that turn 3% and 10 missed days into $6 million? That math still doesn't feel real to me.
Because compounding isn't a straight line. It's a curve that looks completely flat for a long time and then goes almost vertical. In year one, 10% growth on $5,000 is $500. Feels like nothing happened. But by year 30, that same 10% is growing on a pile that's already worth 10 times what you started with.
So the boring years aren't wasted. They're just loading?
That's exactly it. Almost none of the real money in a headline like that gets made in year 1 or even year 10. It gets made in the last stretch on money that already had decades to grow. Which is also exactly why bailing out early costs so much more than it looks like it should. You're not just losing your money, you're losing everything that money would have made on itself every year after that, forever.
Wait, so people who panic sell after a crash aren't just locking in a loss.
They're deleting every year of growth that loss would have eventually turned into. That's the part nobody feels in the moment. It doesn't show up as pain today. It shows up as a smaller number decades from now that you'll never actually see yourself missing because you'll never know what the version of you who stayed in would have had.
Okay, so if the whole problem is that my hands keep getting involved, what's the actual fix? Just what, willpower? Because I already know I don't have that.
Nobody does, consistently for 30 years straight. That's the honest answer. The people who actually pull this off usually aren't relying on willpower at all. They've set it up so the decision happens automatically, before the panic ever gets a vote. Money moves on its own schedule, into the same account, whether the market had a great week or a terrible one. There's no daily choice to make, so there's no daily chance to get it wrong.
So it's less be a stronger person and more remove yourself from the situation entirely?
That's the whole rule, actually. That's what boring really means. It's not that patient people feel calmer during a crash than you do. They still feel it, remember? Twice as loud as the gains. It's that they built something where feeling it doesn't require them to do anything.
That genuinely feels like cheating.
It's not cheating. It's just not fun. Nobody's making a viral video about a chart that doesn't move for 15 years. But that flat, boring stretch is the part that's actually doing all the work underneath. And now you know why it works, and why almost nothing else does.
All right, fine. Boring wins. But what happens when I actually do need to touch the money? Like, what happens if the year I need it is also the year the market's down?
That's a completely different rule. Different video.